The glass door of Lavender and Lace Boutique jingled as Olivia Newbury balanced a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and fumbled with her keys in the other. Monday mornings were always a struggle, especially after spending the entire weekend helping her roommate move into a new apartment. Her shoulders ached as she pushed through the door, the familiar scent of lavender candles and new fabric welcoming her to another week of work at the upscale women's boutique. "Good morning, sunshine," called Tessa, the store's bubbly manager, already arranging a new display of silk scarves. "You look like you could use another coffee." "I could use another weekend," Olivia replied, setting her belongings behind the counter. She took a sip of her coffee and glanced around the boutique. Located in the heart of downtown Westport, Lavender and Lace catered to women with refined taste and generous budgets. The clothes were exquisite hand-selected by the owner, Patricia, who had an eye for unique pieces that couldn't be found in department stores. Olivia had been working at the boutique for just over a year. With a degree in fashion merchandising and a passion for design, it wasn't her dream job, but it paid the bills while she worked on her own clothing line in her spare time. The customers were generally pleasant, the employee discount was generous, and the small team felt like family. "The new spring collection arrived this morning," Tessa said, pointing to several boxes stacked neatly by the back room. "Patricia wants it all displayed by Wednesday." "Think you can handle it?" "Absolutely," Olivia nodded, already mentally arranging the displays in her head. She enjoyed the creative aspects of her job the most, transforming the boutique's aesthetic with each new season. By mid-afternoon, Olivia was deep in inventory, surrounded by tissue paper and beautiful garments when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see a tall man with dark hair enter the boutique, looking decidedly out of place among the feminine decor. He wore a simple but well-tailored charcoal suit that suggested money without flaunting it, and his confident stride indicated he wasn't uncomfortable shopping in a women's store. "Can I help you find something?" Olivia asked, setting down the cashmere sweater she'd been tagging. The man turned, and Olivia was struck by his striking blue eyes. "Yes, actually, I'm looking for a gift for my sister." His voice was deep and warm, with a slight accent she couldn't quite place. "You have something specific in mind?" Olivia stood, smoothing down her black dress. "Not really," he admitted with a smile that transformed his serious face. "All I know is that she loves this place. Apparently, she talks about it constantly to anyone who will listen." "Well, that's a good start," Olivia said, moving from behind the counter. "What's the occasion?" "Her birthday is next week. She's turning 30 and I want to get her something special." "I'd be happy to help. What's your sister's name? She might be a regular and I could have some insight into her style." "Natalie," he replied. "Natalie Xavier." Olivia's eyes widened slightly in recognition. Natalie Xavier was indeed a regular, one of their best customers, in fact. She came in at least twice a month and rarely left without spending 4 figures. "Oh, I know Natalie. She has incredible taste. She just purchased our emerald silk wrap dress last week and was eyeing our new collection of Italian leather handbags." The man nodded, looking relieved. "That sounds like Nat, always one step ahead of the trends." "I'm Olivia, by the way," she offered, extending her hand. "Nick," he replied, his large hand enveloping hers in a firm handshake. "Nick Xavier." The name Xavier tickled something in the back of Olivia's mind, but she couldn't quite place it. She was distracted by the warmth of his hand and the subtle scent of his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. "Let me show you a few things I think Natalie might like," Olivia said, leading Nick toward a display of accessories. "These scarves just came in from a small atelier in Paris. Natalie admired them when I showed her the catalog last month." Nick followed, his hands in his pockets, observing Olivia with quiet interest as she pulled out various items. "The blue would complement her eyes," Olivia suggested, holding up a hand-painted silk scarf. "And this cashmere wrap is perfect for evening events." As they moved through the store, Olivia found herself enjoying Nick's company. Unlike many men who seemed uncomfortable in the boutique, he was attentive and asked thoughtful questions. He clearly cared about choosing the right gift for his sister. "You know Natalie well," he remarked as Olivia selected a pair of leather gloves she thought would match Natalie's new coat. "She's been coming here since before I started working here," Olivia explained. "She has a great eye for quality and always knows exactly what she wants." Nick smiled fondly. "That's Nat, decisive to a fault." After exploring several options, Nick decided on the scarf, the gloves, and a delicate gold bracelet that Olivia assured him would be perfect with Natalie's collection. "Would you like these gift wrapped?" Olivia asked as she rang up his purchases. "Please," Nick said, pulling out a sleek black credit card. "You've been incredibly helpful, Olivia. I was dreading this shopping trip, but you made it painless." Olivia smiled as she carefully wrapped each item in the boutique's signature lavender tissue paper. "Happy to help. I hope Natalie loves her gifts." As she handed Nick his bag, their fingers brushed briefly. "Perhaps I could thank you properly with coffee sometime," he asked, his blue eyes meeting hers with surprising intensity. The question caught Olivia off guard. Men like Nick, polished, confident, and undeniably handsome, didn't usually ask her out. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said quickly. "That was forward of me. Please forget I asked." "No," Olivia said, surprising herself. "Coffee would be nice." The smile that spread across his face was genuine and warm. "Great. How about tomorrow? There's a cafe around the corner, the Copper Kettle. Say noon." "Noon works," Olivia replied, suddenly aware of Tessa watching their exchange with undisguised interest from across the store. Nick nodded. "It's a date then. Thank you again for all your help, Olivia." After he left, Tessa practically bounded over. "Did Nick Xavier just ask you out?" "You know him?" Olivia asked, still feeling slightly dazed. "Know him?" "Everyone knows the Xavier family," Tessa said with wide eyes. "They own half the real estate in this city. Their company, Xavier Developments, is building that massive new complex downtown." Olivia frowned. "I didn't realize." "Nick's the CEO since his father stepped down last year. The man is worth billions, Olivia. Billions." Tessa shook her head in disbelief. "And you're having coffee with him tomorrow, just a casual Tuesday." Olivia felt her stomach flip. She'd just agreed to have coffee with a billionaire CEO, thinking he was just a regular, albeit well-dressed, guy shopping for his sister. "I should cancel," she said, reaching for her phone. Tessa grabbed her wrist. "Don't you dare. This is your Cinderella moment." "It's coffee, Tessa, not a ball," Olivia protested. "And I'm not interested in someone because of their bank account." "Then go because he's gorgeous and seemed genuinely interested in you," Tessa countered. "Just don't bail because you're intimidated." Olivia bit her lip, considering. Nick had been kind and easy to talk to. He hadn't mentioned his wealth or status, and he'd seemed genuinely interested in her opinion. Maybe coffee wouldn't be so bad. "Fine," she sighed, "but it's just coffee." Tessa grinned triumphantly. "It always starts with just coffee." As Olivia walked to work the next morning, her nerves were frayed. She'd spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing her outfit, a simple but elegant navy dress with a structured blazer and comfortable heels. She'd told herself it was because she was going straight from work to coffee, but the truth was, knowing Nick's status had made her self-conscious. The morning passed in a blur of customers and inventory. Before she knew it, it was 11:45, and Tessa was practically shoving her out the door. "Go. And text me every detail." Tessa called as Olivia grabbed her purse. The copper kettle was only a block away, a cozy cafe with exposed brick walls and large windows overlooking a small park. As Olivia approached, she spotted Nick already seated at a corner table, typing on his phone. He wore a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. Without the formal suit, he looked more approachable but no less striking. He looked up as she entered, his face brightening. He stood to greet her, tucking his phone away. "Olivia," he said warmly. "I'm glad you came." "I said I would," she replied, settling into the chair he pulled out for her. "True, but I thought after I left you might have second thoughts." His smile was self-deprecating. "I realized I came on rather strong." "Actually," Olivia admitted, "I almost canceled after finding out who you are." Nick's expression fell slightly. "Ah, so you Googled me." "No, Tessa filled me in," Olivia explained. "I had no idea who Nick Xavier was when you asked me out." To her surprise, he looked relieved. "And that's exactly why I didn't introduce myself as Nick Xavier, CEO of Xavier Developments. I prefer people to know me before they know my bank balance." Olivia could understand that. It must be difficult, never knowing if people like you for you or for what you can give them. "It has its challenges," Nick agreed as a server approached their table. "What would you like to drink?" After they ordered a latte for her, black coffee for him, Olivia found herself relaxing. Despite his wealth and status, Nick was surprisingly down to earth. He asked about her background, listened attentively as she talked about her fashion merchandising degree and her dreams of designing her own line one day. "Why haven't you pursued that?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Money, mostly," Olivia admitted. "Starting a fashion line requires capital I don't have, and connections I haven't made yet." Nick nodded thoughtfully. "What kind of designs do you create?" "Sustainable, versatile pieces for professional women," Olivia explained, warming to the topic. "Clothes that transition from office to evening, made from eco-friendly materials that last." "Sounds like something my sister would love," Nick remarked. "She's always complaining about fast fashion and its impact on the environment." Their conversation flowed easily, moving from fashion to books to travel. Nick described growing up in a family where business was discussed over breakfast, and how he'd initially resisted joining the family company, wanting to forge his own path. "What changed your mind?" Olivia asked. "My father had a heart attack 5 years ago," Nick explained, his expression sobering. "He recovered, but it was a wake-up call. I realized the company wasn't just a business to him, it was his life's work, his legacy, and I found I wanted to be part of that after all." Olivia was touched by his honesty. "That's understandable. Family comes first." "Exactly." Nick smiled, checking his watch. "I've kept you for nearly an hour. You probably need to get back to work." "Actually, I'm off for the day," Olivia admitted. "Tessa adjusted the schedule so I could take my time." Nick's eyes twinkled with amusement. "So your manager is playing matchmaker," Olivia laughed, feeling her cheeks warm. "She might be." "In that case, would you like to continue this over lunch? There's a great Italian place around the corner." Olivia hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." Lunch extended into a leisurely walk through the park, where they continued their conversation as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the path. Nick was intelligent and thoughtful, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. By the time they parted ways, exchanging phone numbers with promises to meet again soon, Olivia was forced to admit to herself that Tessa had been right. It had started with just coffee, but she was definitely interested in seeing where it might lead. Nick called the next day, asking if she'd like to have dinner with him on Friday. Olivia accepted, trying to ignore the butterflies in her stomach. Just be yourself, Tessa advised as she helped Olivia select an outfit from the boutique's collection. A perk of the job was occasionally borrowing clothes for special occasions. He already likes you, or he wouldn't have asked you out again. But dinner is different from coffee, Olivia fretted, holding a burgundy dress against herself. It's more official. That's the point, Tessa said with a grin. He wants to officially date you. And this, she added, pulling out a sleek black dress with an elegant neckline, is what you should wear. Friday evening arrived, and with it, Nick's text saying he was waiting outside. Olivia stepped out of her apartment building to find not the luxury car she'd half expected, but Nick himself, standing beside a vintage motorcycle. "Hope you don't mind," he said, offering her a helmet. "It's a beautiful evening for a ride." Olivia stared at the gleaming machine. "I've never been on a motorcycle before. We can take a cab if you prefer," Nick offered immediately. "I should have asked first." Olivia considered the helmet, then the hopeful look on Nick's face. "No, let's ride. But fair warning, if I ruin this dress, you're buying me a new one." Nick's laugh was rich and genuine. "Deal." The ride to the restaurant was exhilarating. Olivia held tightly to Nick's waist, the warm evening air rushing past them as they wound through the city streets. She found herself laughing with pure joy as they accelerated out of a turn, the city lights blurring around them. The restaurant was an exclusive rooftop venue with panoramic views of the city skyline. As they were led to a secluded table near the edge of the terrace, Olivia couldn't help noticing the deferential way the staff treated Nick. "You come here often?" she asked after they were seated and handed leather-bound menus. "Occasionally," Nick admitted. "My company owns the building. But the chef is genuinely talented. That's why I wanted to bring you here." Throughout dinner, Olivia found herself constantly surprised by Nick. Despite his wealth and position, he spoke passionately about affordable housing initiatives his company was undertaking, and listened intently when she talked about her younger sister's struggles to find an apartment in the city. "Housing shouldn't be a luxury," he said, swirling the wine in his glass. "Everyone deserves a safe, comfortable place to live. That's why I'm pushing the board to allocate a percentage of all our new developments to affordable units." "That's admirable," Olivia said, genuinely impressed. "Not many developers would prioritize that over profit. My father taught me that true success isn't measured by how much money you make, but by the positive impact you have on others' lives," Nick said. "Though I'll admit, not everyone on the board shares that philosophy." After dinner, they stood at the terrace railing, looking out over the glittering cityscape. The night was clear, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of the flowering plants arranged around the rooftop. "It's beautiful up here," Olivia said softly. "Yes, it is," Nick agreed, though when she turned, she found him looking at her rather than the view. The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Slowly, Nick leaned in, giving her plenty of time to step back if she wanted to. Instead, Olivia found herself moving closer, her eyes closing as his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle and brief, but it sent a current of electricity through her body. When they separated, Nick's blue eyes were dark with an emotion that made her breath catch. "I've wanted to do that since I first saw you in the boutique," he admitted, his voice lower than usual. "I'm glad you waited until at least the second date," Olivia teased, trying to calm her racing heart. Nick laughed, taking her hand in his. "I'm usually more patient than that." "There's just something about you, Olivia." The ride back to her apartment was quieter, both of them lost in thought. When they arrived, Nick walked her to her door, his hand warm against the small of her back. "I had a wonderful time," Olivia said as they reached her apartment. "So did I," Nick replied. "Can I see you again tomorrow? There's a farmer's market I thought you might enjoy." "I'd love that," Olivia said, surprised by how much she meant it. Their second kiss was longer, deeper, leaving her slightly breathless when they finally parted. As she watched Nick walk back to his motorcycle, Olivia knew she was in danger of falling for him fast and hard. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of dates and discoveries. Nick took her to hidden gems throughout the city, a tiny bookstore with rare art books, a family-owned restaurant where the chef came out to greet him by name, a secret garden tucked between office buildings where they shared lunch on a sunny afternoon. Olivia introduced him to her world as well, her favorite vintage clothing shops, the art gallery where her friend worked, and the small studio apartment where she created her designs after hours. "These are incredible," Nick said, examining the sketches and fabric samples spread across her work table. "You have a real talent, Olivia." "Thank you," she said, feeling oddly vulnerable showing him this part of herself. "It's just a hobby for now." "It could be more," Nick suggested, picking up a detailed sketch of a blazer with unique architectural lines. "Have you ever tried to secure funding?" "I've looked into small business loans, but the fashion industry is risky," Olivia explained. "Banks aren't eager to invest." Nick nodded thoughtfully, but didn't press the issue. As they spent more time together, Olivia discovered the man behind the billionaire facade. Nick worked long hours but never missed a dinner with his sister or his weekly call with his mother, who had moved to Florida after his father passed away. He was competitive at board games, terrible at cooking but willing to try, and passionate about education reform, serving on the board of several charter schools. There were challenges too. Nick occasionally had to cancel plans when work emergencies arose, and there were events he attended where Olivia felt out of place among the wealthy elite. But each time, Nick would find her in the crowd, his hand reassuring at her waist, introducing her proudly to his associates. 3 weeks after their first date, Olivia was arranging a new window display at Lavender and Lace when a familiar voice called her name. "Olivia, I've been dying to meet you properly." She turned to find Nick Xavier striding toward her, elegant in a cream pantsuit and the blue scarf Olivia had helped Nick select. "Natalie," Olivia greeted her, suddenly nervous. "How are you?" "Wonderful. Now that I finally get to thank the woman who's made my brother smile more in 3 weeks than he has in the past year," Natalie said, embracing Olivia warmly. "The birthday gifts were perfect, by the way. Nick mentioned you helped him choose them." "I'm glad you liked them," Olivia said, relaxing slightly at Natalie's friendly demeanor. "Listen," Natalie said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I'm hosting a dinner at my place this Friday. Nothing fancy, just family and close friends. I'd love for you to come." "Nick's too stubborn to ask you himself something about not wanting to rush things, but I know he wants you there." Olivia hesitated. Meeting Nick's family felt like a significant step, one she wasn't sure they were ready for. "Don't overthink it," Natalie advised, reading her expression. "It's just dinner, and I promise not to tell any embarrassing stories about Nick. Well, not too many." Olivia found herself laughing. "When you put it that way, how can I refuse?" "Excellent," Natalie clapped her hands together. 7 o'clock, I'll text you the address." After Natalie left, Tessa emerged from the stockroom. "Was that Nick Xavier inviting you to a family dinner?" "Apparently," Olivia said, still processing the invitation. "You know what this means, don't you? He's serious about you." "It's only been 3 weeks," Olivia protested, though her heart skipped at the thought. "When you know," Tessa said with a shrug. "And apparently the Xavier siblings know." That evening, Nick called as Olivia was finishing dinner at her apartment. "I hear my sister ambushed you today," he said, his tone apologetic. "She invited me to dinner," Olivia confirmed. "Should I be worried about Natalie?" "Always," Nick chuckled. But she means well. Look, you shouldn't feel obligated to come. I know it's early for the whole meet the family thing. Do you not want me to come? Olivia asked, suddenly uncertain. No, I mean, yes, I want you there, Nick clarified quickly. I just don't want you to feel pressured. I'd like to come, Olivia said honestly. Unless you're embarrassed to introduce me to your family. Embarrassed? Nick sounded genuinely shocked. Olivia, I'd shout from rooftops how amazing you are if I thought it wouldn't terrify you. You're the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. His words warmed her from the inside out. Then, I'll see you Friday. Friday evening found Olivia standing outside Natalie's brownstone, clutching a bottle of wine and fighting the urge to run. She changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple green dress that complemented her auburn hair. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the doorbell. Natalie opened the door, radiant in a flowing maxi dress. Olivia, come in, come in. Everyone's dying to meet you. The brownstone was beautifully renovated, with high ceilings and modern art contrasting with original architectural details. Natalie led her through to a spacious living room where several people were gathered, drinks in hand. Nick spotted her immediately, crossing the room to her side. You came, he said softly, kissing her cheek. I said I would, Olivia replied, echoing her words from their first coffee date. Nick's smile was warm as he took her hand, guiding her toward an elegant older woman seated on the sofa. Mom, this is Olivia. Evelyn Xavier had Nick's blue eyes and Natalie's warm smile. She stood to embrace Olivia. So you're the young woman who's captivated my son. I've heard wonderful things about you. It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Xavier, Olivia said, suddenly conscious of her second-hand dress and modest upbringing. Evelyn, please, Nick's mother insisted. And don't look so nervous, dear. We don't bite. Much, added a tall man approaching with 2 glasses of wine. He handed one to Olivia. James Robertson, Natalie's fiancé. Welcome to the chaos. Over the next hour, Olivia met Nick's extended family, his cousin Emma and her husband, his uncle Robert, who ran the philanthropic arm of Xavier Developments, and several close friends who were clearly considered family. To her relief, everyone was welcoming and unpretentious, treating her like she belonged among them. During dinner, served in Natalie's elegant dining room, Evelyn turned the conversation to Olivia. Nick tells me you're a designer. Olivia nearly choked on her wine. She hadn't expected Nick to mention her aspirations to his family. I'm working at Lavender and Lace Boutique currently, but yes, I do design in my free time. She's being modest, Nick interjected. Her designs are incredible, innovative, sustainable, and beautiful. I'd love to see them, Natalie said with genuine interest. The boutique industry needs more sustainable options. Absolutely, agreed Emma. I'm always looking for ethical fashion choices for my consulting clients. As the conversation continued, Olivia realized she was being subtly assessed not for her social status or connections, but for her passion and values. It was unexpected but far less intimidating than she'd feared. After dinner, as guests mingled over coffee and dessert, Nick led Olivia out to Natalie's small garden terrace. The space was intimate, lit by string lights that cast a warm glow over the potted plants and comfortable seating. Are you having an okay time? Nick asked, his expression slightly anxious. I know my family can be overwhelming. They're wonderful, Olivia assured him. Nothing like what I expected. What did you expect? Monocles and discussions about yacht maintenance, Nick teased. Maybe a little, Olivia admitted with a laugh. But they're just normal people who happen to be extraordinarily successful. Success doesn't change who you are at your core, Nick said, taking her hands in his. My father made sure we understood that. Money is a tool, not an identity. Olivia squeezed his hands. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was, Nick said softly. He would have liked you. The tenderness in his voice made Olivia's heart swell. Standing in the gentle glow of the string lights, she felt the barriers she'd built begin to crumble. She was falling in love with Nick Xavier, not the billionaire, but the man who remembered how she took her coffee, who listened when she spoke, who saw her dreams as valid and valuable. "What are you thinking?" Nick asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "That I'm really glad you needed a gift for your sister," Olivia replied honestly. Nick smiled, drawing her closer. "Best shopping trip of my life." Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of the terrace door opening. Natalie appeared, a knowing smile on her face. "Sorry to intrude, lovebirds, but Mom's leaving and wants to say goodbye." As they returned inside, Olivia caught Evelyn giving Nick an approving nod. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly, and by the time Nick drove Olivia home, she felt like she'd gained insight into the foundation that had shaped him into the man she was growing to love. "Thank you for coming tonight," Nick said as they stood outside her apartment door. "It meant a lot to me." "I had a wonderful time," Olivia replied truthfully. "Your family is lovely." Nick hesitated, then asked, "Would you like to come to my place tomorrow? I could cook dinner." At her raised eyebrow, he laughed. "Okay, I could attempt to cook dinner, or we could order in if it's a disaster." "I'd like that," Olivia said, her pulse quickening at the invitation. They'd been dating for weeks, but had always met in public places or at her apartment. Nick's home represented another layer of intimacy. The next evening, Nick picked her up in a sleek but understated car. They drove to a modern high-rise overlooking the river, where a discreet doorman greeted Nick by name as they entered. "Mr. Xavier, good evening." "Evening, Frank," Nick replied warmly. "This is Olivia." "A pleasure, miss," the doorman nodded, his professional demeanor softening slightly. "Enjoy your evening." The elevator required a key card for the penthouse level. As they ascended, Olivia felt a flutter of nerves. Nick seemed to sense her tension, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "It's just an apartment," he said softly. "A bit larger than necessary, perhaps, but still just 4 walls and a roof." When the elevator doors opened directly into his foyer, Olivia realized Nick had been modest in his description. The penthouse was stunning, open and airy, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city and river beyond. The decor was masculine but warm, with comfortable leather furniture, rich wood accents, and what appeared to be original artwork adorning the walls. "This is beautiful," Olivia breathed, moving toward the windows. The city spread out below them, a tapestry of lights against the darkening sky. "Thank you," Nick said, setting her bag on a bench. "I prefer spaces with character, but the view sold me on this place." "I can see why," Olivia agreed, turning to take in more details. A grand piano stood in one corner, and built-in bookshelves lined an entire wall, filled with well-worn volumes. "You play?" she asked, gesturing toward the piano. "Badly," Nick admitted with a self-deprecating smile. 12 years of lessons and I still murder Beethoven, but I find it relaxing. Will you play for me sometime? If you promise not to run screaming," Nick chuckled. "Now, how about a tour before I attempt to impress you with my limited culinary skills?" The penthouse was spacious, but not ostentatious. Nick had clearly valued comfort over showiness in his design choices. His office revealed his methodical side, neat stacks of documents, multiple computer screens, and a wall of family photos, including several of a distinguished-looking older man Olivia assumed was his father. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all gleaming stainless steel and marble, though Nick confessed he rarely used it to its full potential. "I can make exactly 3 dishes with confidence," he explained as he pulled ingredients from the refrigerator. "Pasta carbonara, steak with roasted potatoes, and breakfast. Tonight we're having option 1. Need any help?" Olivia offered, leaning against the counter. "You can open the wine," Nick suggested, nodding toward a bottle already set out. "And maybe save us from starvation if this goes horribly wrong." As Nick prepared dinner, they fell into easy conversation. Olivia was charmed by his concentration as he followed the recipe, his sleeves rolled up and a dish towel slung over his shoulder. This domestic side of Nick was endearing, focused but relaxed, occasionally asking her opinion on the amount of garlic or the doneness of the pasta. To Olivia's surprise, dinner was delicious. They ate at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room, sharing the bottle of wine and trading stories about their respective days. "I never would have guessed you'd be such a good cook," Olivia said as she helped clear the dishes. "Low expectations are the key to appearing impressive," Nick joked, loading the dishwasher. "Besides, carbonara is foolproof. It's only 4 ingredients." After cleaning up, they settled on the comfortable sofa with fresh glasses of wine. Outside, the city lights twinkled and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. "This feels surreal sometimes," Olivia admitted, nestling against Nick's side. "A month ago, I didn't know you existed. Now, here I am in your penthouse having dinner and feeling." "Feeling what?" Nick prompted gently when she hesitated. "Like I've known you much longer," Olivia finished, not quite ready to confess the depth of her emotions. Nick's arm tightened around her. "I know exactly what you mean. From that first day in the boutique, something just clicked. I've never connected with anyone the way I have with you." His honesty emboldened her. "Even though we come from such different worlds." "What different worlds?" Nick questioned. "We grew up in the same city, we love the same books, we share the same values. The only real difference is circumstance, and that's just background noise." Olivia turned to face him, struck by the sincerity in his eyes. "Most people would consider your background noise to be pretty significant." "Most people put too much emphasis on the wrong things," Nick replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Money doesn't define who I am any more than your job at the boutique defines you. We're both more than our bank accounts or job titles." His words resonated deeply with Olivia, who had worried about the disparity in their financial situations. Nick had never once made her feel less than equal, had never flaunted his wealth or used it to impress her. "You're pretty wise for a billionaire," she teased, lightening the moment. "And you're pretty extraordinary for a boutique clerk," he countered with a smile. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a passion that had been building between them for weeks. Olivia found herself melting into his embrace, all her concerns and reservations fading away under the certainty that this whatever was happening between them was real and rare. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Nick's blue eyes were dark with desire. But he didn't push, instead pressing his forehead to hers with a soft sigh. "Stay the night," he whispered, "just to sleep. I'm not ready for you to leave." Olivia hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." In the morning, Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom's large windows and the smell of coffee. Nick's side of the bed was empty, but still warm. She stretched luxuriously, feeling rested despite the unfamiliar surroundings. After borrowing Nick's robe ridiculously large on her smaller frame, she padded through the apartment, following the scent of coffee and something sweet baking. She found Nick in the kitchen, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, flipping pancakes with focused concentration. "Good morning," she said, leaning against the doorframe. Nick looked up, his face breaking into a warm smile at the sight of her in his robe. "Good morning. Sleep well. Better than I have in ages," Olivia admitted, accepting the mug of coffee he offered. "Those pancakes smell amazing." "Breakfast is one of my 3 specialties, remember," Nick reminded her with a grin. "Take a seat. They're almost ready." They ate at the kitchen island, the morning sun warming the space as they shared sections of the Sunday paper and made plans for the day. The domesticity of it all felt natural, as if they'd been doing this for years rather than experiencing it for the first time. As days turned into weeks, Olivia and Nick fell into a comfortable rhythm. They spent weeknights at her apartment or his penthouse, working side by side, Nick on development proposals, Olivia on her designs. Weekends were for exploring the city, trying new restaurants, or simply enjoying quiet moments together. Olivia continued working at the boutique, though Nick had subtly suggested she could quit to focus on her design work if she wanted to. She declined, valuing her independence and the experience she gained from the retail environment. "I'll pursue my designs on my terms in my time," she had told him firmly. "I appreciate the offer, but I need to do this myself." Nick had respected her decision, though she occasionally caught him studying her sketches with a thoughtful expression. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. Nick's position meant he sometimes worked long hours or had to travel unexpectedly. There were black tie events where Olivia felt out of place among the social elite, and moments when the gulf between their financial situations seemed insurmountable. But for every challenge, there were countless joys: lazy Sunday mornings reading in bed, surprise lunch dates when Nick would appear at the boutique, passionate discussions about books and films and politics that lasted late into the night. 2 months into their relationship, as they were enjoying dinner at a small Italian restaurant they'd discovered together, Nick seemed unusually quiet. "Is everything okay?" Olivia asked, concerned by his distraction. Nick set down his wine glass with a sigh. "I've been offered an opportunity to oversee a major development project in Singapore. It would mean spending 3 months there starting next week." Olivia felt her heart sink. "Oh, that's sudden." "It is," Nick agreed, his expression troubled. "The company that was handling it collapsed unexpectedly, and we have investors who need reassurance. I'm the logical choice to take over, but—" "But what?" Olivia prompted when he trailed off. "But I don't want to leave you," Nick admitted, reaching for her hand across the table. 3 months is a long time." Olivia squeezed his fingers, touched by his concern. "It is, but this sounds important for your company." "It is," Nick nodded. "This project could provide housing for thousands of people and revolutionize sustainable urban development in Southeast Asia." "Then you have to go," Olivia said with more confidence than she felt. "We'll make it work. There's video calls, and maybe I could visit for a week or 2. Nick's face brightened. "You do that? Fly all the way to Singapore for you?" "Yes," Olivia said simply. The realization that she would cross oceans to be with him made her next words easier. "I love you, Nick. Distance doesn't change that." It was the first time either of them had said those words. Nick's eyes widened, then softened with emotion. "I love you too, Olivia." More than I thought possible after such a short time. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of plans and promises. They would video call daily, and Nick would arrange for Olivia to visit after his first month there. It wasn't ideal, but they were committed to making it work. The week before Nick's departure was bittersweet, filled with preparations for his trip and precious moments together that had to sustain them through the coming separation. Olivia helped him pack, teasing him about his methodical approach to organizing his suitcase. "You're the only person I know who creates a spreadsheet for packing," she laughed as he checked items off his list. "Planning prevents poor performance," Nick quoted with a grin. "My father's mantra." On Nick's last night before leaving, they had a quiet dinner at his penthouse, neither of them wanting to share their final hours with others. After dinner, as they stood by the windows looking out at the city lights, Nick turned to Olivia with an unexpected question. "Move in here while I'm gone." Olivia blinked in surprise. "What? Live here while I'm away," Nick clarified. "The place will be empty and your apartment lease is up for renewal next month anyway. You mentioned your landlord is raising the rent." "Nick, I can't just live in your penthouse," Olivia protested. "It's too much." "Why? You stay here half the time already," Nick reasoned. "And it would give you more space to work on your designs. The second bedroom would make a perfect studio with all that natural light." Olivia hesitated, torn between practical considerations and her pride. "I couldn't afford to contribute properly to a place like this." "I'm not asking you to," Nick said softly. "This place is paid for. It would be sitting empty otherwise." "It still feels like, I don't know, taking advantage." Nick took her hands in his. "Olivia, I'm not trying to buy your affection or make you dependent on me. I just want to offer you a space that might make your life easier while we're apart. If you're uncomfortable with it, we'll forget I mentioned it." Olivia considered his offer, recognizing the sincerity behind it. Moving into Nick's penthouse would save her from the stress of finding a new apartment, and the extra space would indeed be ideal for her design work. "Okay," she said finally, "but only temporarily, and I'm paying the utilities at least." Nick's smile was radiant. "Deal. And for the record, I like the idea of you being here, surrounded by my things. It makes leaving a little easier." The next morning they said goodbye at the airport, clinging to each other until the final boarding call. "I love you," Nick whispered against her hair. "I'll be back before you know it." Olivia nodded, fighting tears. "I love you too. Go change the world." As she watched him walk through security, Olivia was struck by how completely Nick Xavier had transformed her life in just a few short months. She had fallen in love with him despite their differences, despite her initial wariness of his wealth and status. What had started as a chance encounter in a boutique had blossomed into the most significant relationship of her life. Moving into Nick's penthouse was easier than Olivia had anticipated. He had left detailed instructions for the building staff, ensuring she was treated with the same respect and consideration shown to him. Frank, the doorman, greeted her by name each day, and the concierge assisted with the logistics of relocating her belongings. The transition wasn't without its awkward moments. Olivia felt strange sleeping in Nick's massive bed alone, and she initially hesitated to touch anything, feeling like a visitor in a museum rather than a resident in a home. But gradually, she began to settle in, adding small touches of her own fresh flowers on the kitchen island, her favorite books on the nightstand, her design materials organized in the second bedroom. True to his word, Nick called every day, despite the 12-hour time difference. They shared details of their days, from Nick's frustrations with contractors to Olivia's latest design breakthroughs. The distance was difficult, but their connection remained strong. "You seem different," Tessa remarked one afternoon at the boutique. "More confident." Olivia considered this. "I feel different, more settled maybe." "Love looks good on you," Tessa said with a smile, "and living in a penthouse probably doesn't hurt." Olivia laughed, but she knew the changes in her went deeper than her address. Being with Nick, loving him, and being loved in return had helped her see herself more clearly. His belief in her talent had encouraged her to take her designs more seriously, to envision a future where her passion could become her profession. 3 weeks after Nick's departure, Olivia was sorting new arrivals at the boutique when Patricia, the owner, called her into the office. Olivia, I wanted to discuss something with you, Patricia said, gesturing for her to sit. Tessa mentioned you've been working on some original designs. Yes, in my free time, Olivia confirmed, wondering where this was leading. I'd like to see them, Patricia said directly. We've been considering adding some exclusive pieces to the boutique, and I'd prefer to work with a designer I know and trust. Olivia stared at her in shock. Are you serious? Entirely, Patricia nodded. If your designs align with our aesthetic, this could be an opportunity for both of us. You'd gain exposure and we'd offer something unique to our customers. I'd be honored, Olivia said, her mind racing with possibilities. I can bring my portfolio tomorrow. Excellent, Patricia smiled. Now there's one more thing. A customer called specifically asking for you earlier. She said she's a friend of Nick Xavier's. Emma Robertson. Olivia recognized the name immediately. Nick's cousin who worked as a fashion consultant. Yes, I met her at a dinner. She wants to discuss a potential collaboration for some of her clients, Patricia explained. I told her you'd call her back. As Olivia left the office, she felt a mix of excitement and suspicion. Had Nick orchestrated these opportunities? She called him that evening, unable to contain her news but also needing to know if he'd been pulling strings behind the scenes. That's incredible, Nick exclaimed when she told him about Patricia's offer. I knew she'd recognize your talent eventually. You didn't say anything to her, Olivia asked directly. Of course not, Nick assured her. I wouldn't interfere like that. Your work speaks for itself, Olivia. And Emma, Nick hesitated. I may have mentioned your designs to her when she called to check on me last week, but I didn't suggest she contact you or the boutique. That was her decision. Olivia believed him. Nick had always respected her independence, understanding that her accomplishments would mean more if she achieved them on her own merit. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Patricia was impressed with Olivia's portfolio and commissioned a small collection of 6 pieces to debut in the boutique's summer showcase. Emma, after reviewing Olivia's work, enlisted her to design custom outfits for 2 of her high-profile clients. Olivia worked on these projects in the evenings and on her days off, transforming the second bedroom of Nick's penthouse into a fully functional design studio. She invested in a professional sewing machine and dress form, gradually expanding her materials and tools as orders came in. By the time Nick had been gone for 2 months, Olivia's designs were generating significant interest. Patricia had increased her initial order, and Emma had introduced her to several more clients. It wasn't enough to quit her day job yet, but it was a promising start. I wish I could be there to see it all happening, Nick said during one of their video calls. I'm so proud of you, Olivia. I couldn't have done it without you, Olivia admitted. Having the space to work, the time to focus, it's made all the difference. You did the work, Nick insisted. All I did was provide some square footage. A week later, Olivia was preparing for her trip to Singapore when she received an unexpected call from Natalie. Olivia, I need a huge favor, Natalie said without preamble. The charity gala for the Xavier Foundation is next weekend, and our keynote speaker just canceled. I need someone to present the scholarship recipients, and you're perfect for it. Me? Olivia asked in confusion. Natalie, I don't know anything about the foundation's work. But you care about education and opportunity. Nick's told me how passionate you are about those issues, Natalie insisted. And you're articulate and poised. Plus, you're practically family now. Please, I'm desperate, and it would mean so much to Mom. Olivia hesitated. The gala was the night before her flight to Singapore, which meant she'd have to rush directly from the event to catch her plane. But Natalie sounded genuinely panicked, and Olivia did feel a growing connection to the Xavier family. All right, she agreed. but you'll need to brief me thoroughly on what to say." "Absolutely," Natalie promised. "I'll email you all the details tonight. Thank you, you're a lifesaver." The week leading up to the gala was frantic. Between her regular shifts at the boutique, finalizing her designs for Patricia, and preparing for her trip to Singapore, Olivia barely had time to memorize her speech for the gala. Nick was supportive from afar, assuring her she would be brilliant and offering to have his stylist help with her gown. "I have access to the boutique's formal wear," Olivia reminded him. "I'll find something suitable." "Of course you will," Nick agreed. "You always look stunning." The night of the gala arrived, and Olivia found herself standing before the mirror in Nick's bathroom, hardly recognizing the elegant woman reflected back at her. She had chosen a midnight blue gown from the boutique's new collection, simple but sophisticated, with a modest neckline and an open back that added a touch of drama. Her auburn hair was swept up in a sleek chignon, and she wore the delicate diamond earrings Nick had sent as a surprise for courage. A knock at the door announced her car had arrived. The foundation had arranged for a driver to take her to the event, held at the city's most prestigious hotel. As the car pulled up to the entrance, Olivia took a deep breath, steadying her nerves before stepping onto the red carpet. The ballroom was transformed into an elegant wonderland, with crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over tables adorned with white orchids and silver candelabras. Natalie spotted her immediately, rushing over in a flutter of emerald silk. "You look gorgeous," Natalie exclaimed, embracing her. "Thank you again for doing this. Mom's over the moon that you agreed to help." Nick Xavier joined them, resplendent in a classic black gown. "Olivia, dear, you're a vision." She kissed Olivia's cheek warmly. "Nicholas will be devastated to have missed seeing you like this." "I sent him photos," Olivia admitted with a smile. "He made me promise." The evening progressed smoothly. Olivia was seated at the head table with the Xavier family, where she found herself engaged in conversation with university presidents, philanthropists, and civic leaders. To her surprise, she felt increasingly at ease among them, able to contribute thoughtfully to discussions about education reform and community development. When it came time for her to speak, Olivia approached the podium with nervous anticipation. The ballroom fell silent as she adjusted the microphone. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "While I wish Nicholas Xavier could be here tonight to present these scholarships himself, I'm honored to stand in his place and recognize the extraordinary young people who represent the future of our community." As she spoke about the Foundation's mission and introduced each scholarship recipient, Olivia felt a growing sense of purpose. These students, bright, determined young people from underserved communities, were being given opportunities that would change the trajectory of their lives. It was exactly the kind of meaningful impact Nick had spoken about, the true measure of success his father had instilled in him. By the time she concluded her speech, inviting the final recipient to the stage, Olivia had forgotten her nerves. The audience's applause was enthusiastic, and Natalie gave her a subtle thumbs up from the side of the stage. "That was remarkable," Evelyn said later, squeezing Olivia's hand. "You captured the essence of what William and I hope to achieve with the foundation." "Nicholas couldn't have done better himself." "High praise indeed," Olivia replied, touched by the comparison. As the evening wound down, Natalie pulled Olivia aside. "You were perfect tonight. Everyone is asking about you, who you are, how you're connected to the family. What did you tell them?" Olivia asked curiously. "That you're the woman who's made my brother happier than I've ever seen him," Natalie said simply. "The rest is just details." It was nearly midnight when Olivia returned to the penthouse, exhausted but exhilarated. She had just begun to unzip her gown when her phone rang with a video call from Nick. "How did it go?" he asked as soon as she answered. "Better than I expected," Olivia admitted, sinking onto the bed. "Your mother said I captured the essence of the Foundation's mission." "High praise from Evelyn Xavier," Nick chuckled. "I wish I could have been there to see you. The photos you sent were stunning, but I'm sure they don't do you justice." "I missed having you there," Olivia said softly, "but in less than 48 hours I'll be with you in Singapore." "I can't wait." Nick's voice was warm with anticipation. "I have everything planned, the places I want to show you, the foods you have to try." They talked until Olivia's eyes grew heavy, reluctantly saying goodnight only when it became clear she would fall asleep mid-conversation. As she drifted off, still in her evening gown, Olivia reflected on how seamlessly she had slipped into Nick's world tonight, not as an outsider, but as someone who belonged. The flight to Singapore was long but comfortable, with Olivia using the time to sketch new designs inspired by the gala. When she finally emerged into the arrival hall, tired but excited, Nick was waiting, his familiar tall figure instantly visible among the crowd. Their reunion was sweet and tender, with Nick pulling her into a tight embrace as soon as she reached him. "I missed you so much," he murmured against her hair. "I missed you too," Olivia replied, breathing in his familiar scent. 2 months is too long." The drive from the airport to Nick's temporary apartment provided Olivia's first glimpse of Singapore, a gleaming metropolis of futuristic architecture and lush greenery. Nick pointed out landmarks along the way, his arm around her shoulders, clearly thrilled to be showing her this part of his world. The apartment, provided by Xavier Developments, was spacious and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of the city skyline and harbor beyond. "It's not home," Nick said as he showed her around, "but it's comfortable enough for a short stay. And now that you're here, it already feels better." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of exploration and reconnection. Nick worked during the days, but evenings and weekends were devoted to Olivia. They visited the botanical gardens, sampled street food at hawker centers, and wandered through colorful neighborhoods filled with colonial architecture and vibrant murals. Nick also took Olivia to the development site, a massive urban renewal project designed to transform an industrial area into a sustainable community with affordable housing, green spaces, and mixed-use buildings. "This is remarkable," Olivia said as Nick guided her through the construction site, hard hat securely in place. "The scale of it is incredible." "It's the most ambitious project we've undertaken," Nick admitted, pride evident in his voice, "but also the most meaningful. When it's complete, it will house over 5,000 people and create jobs for thousands more." Watching Nick interact with the engineers and construction workers, Olivia gained new insight into what drove him. He knew the names of site supervisors and laborers alike, asking about their families and listening to their suggestions with genuine interest. This wasn't just a business venture for him, it was a commitment to creating something lasting and beneficial. On their final evening together, Nick took Olivia to dinner at a restaurant perched atop one of the city's tallest buildings. They dined as the sun set over the harbor, casting golden light across the water. "I've been thinking," Nick said as they lingered over dessert. "These past 2 weeks with you here have been wonderful, but they've also made me realize how much I hate being apart from you." Olivia reached for his hand across the table. "I feel the same way, but your work here is important and I have commitments back home." "I know," Nick nodded. "Which is why I've decided to restructure the project management. I'm promoting David to lead the on-site team here, which means I can return home in 2 weeks instead of 4. Olivia's eyes widened. "Nick, are you sure? This project means so much to you. You mean more, Nick said simply. And I can still oversee the project remotely with regular visits. David is more than capable of handling the day-to-day operations. Joy bubbled up in Olivia's chest. 2 more weeks seems much more manageable than 4. There's something else, Nick continued, his expression suddenly serious. Being here, watching you integrate so seamlessly into this part of my life, has confirmed what I already knew. I love you, Olivia, more than I thought possible. And I don't want to spend another day wondering if you'll be in my life tomorrow, next week, next year. Olivia's breath caught as Nick reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I know it's fast, maybe too fast, but when you know, you know. My parents got engaged after 3 months, and they had 35 happy years together. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a perfect diamond nestled between 2 sapphires on a platinum band. Olivia Newbury, will you marry me? Time seemed to stop as Olivia stared at the ring, then at Nick's hopeful face. It was fast, breathtakingly, dizzyingly fast. But in the nearly 4 months they'd known each other, they'd shared more meaningful moments, more honest conversations, more genuine connection than some couples achieved in years. Yes, she said, her voice steady despite the tears gathering in her eyes. Yes, I'll marry you, Nick. The relief and joy that flooded Nick's face was beautiful to behold. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, then leaned across the table to kiss her, oblivious to the other diners who had begun to applaud around them. Later that night, lying in Nick's arms in the darkened bedroom, Olivia admired the way her ring caught the city lights filtering through the windows. "Are you having second thoughts?" Nick asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "Not about marrying you," Olivia assured him. "Just thinking about how much has changed since that day you walked into the boutique looking for a gift for Natalie." "Best shopping trip of my life," Nick murmured, echoing his words from weeks before. "Though I never expected to walk out with the most precious gift of all you." Olivia rolled her eyes at the cheesy line but snuggled closer nonetheless. "Your sister is going to be unbearable, you know. She'll take full credit for our relationship, claiming it was her birthday that brought us together." "Let her," Nick chuckled. "It's a small price to pay for finding you." The journey home was bittersweet, with Olivia reluctant to leave Nick behind but excited to share their news with friends and family. They agreed to keep the engagement private until Nick returned, wanting to announce it together. Tessa, however, spotted the ring immediately when Olivia returned to work. "Oh my God," she gasped, grabbing Olivia's hand across the counter. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yes," Olivia admitted, unable to contain her smile, "but please keep it quiet for now. We want to announce it properly when Nick gets back." "My lips are sealed," Tessa promised, though her excited squeal suggested this might be a challenge. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of anticipation. Olivia divided her time between the boutique, her growing design business, and discreet wedding research. She and Nick spoke daily, counting down the days until his return. Patricia noticed the ring during a fitting for Olivia's new collection, but respected her request for discretion. "I'm thrilled for you," she said sincerely, "and I hope this doesn't mean we'll lose you entirely to married life." "Not at all," Olivia assured her. "My design work is important to me, engagement ring or not." The day of Nick's return finally arrived. Olivia waited at the airport, nervously adjusting her simple white dress, a new design from her own collection. When Nick emerged from customs, their eyes locked across the crowded terminal, and everything else faded away. "Welcome home," Olivia said as he pulled her into his arms. "Home is wherever you are," Nick replied, kissing her softly. That evening they hosted a small dinner party at the penthouse. Natalie and James, Evelyn, Tessa and her boyfriend, and Patricia. After everyone had arrived and champagne had been poured, Nick cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his arm around Olivia's waist. "We wanted to share some news with the people who matter most to us. 2 weeks ago in Singapore, I asked Olivia to marry me. And I said yes," Olivia added, holding up her left hand where the ring sparkled in the light. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Natalie was first to embrace them both, tears streaming down her face. "I knew it. From the moment Nick told me about the helpful salesgirl who knew my taste perfectly, I just knew." "Told you she'd take credit," Nick whispered in Olivia's ear, making her laugh. Evelyn was more composed but equally emotional. "William would have loved you, dear," she told Olivia, squeezing her hands. "You bring out the best in Nicholas, just as I always hoped someone would." As their friends and family celebrated around them, Olivia leaned into Nick's embrace, overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. 6 months ago, she had been a boutique clerk with dreams of designing her own collection someday. Now, she was engaged to a man who loved and supported her completely, with her design career beginning to flourish. "Happy," Nick murmured against her temple. "Incredibly," Olivia replied, turning to meet his gaze, "though I still can't believe how fast everything has happened. Sometimes I wonder if it's all a dream. If it is, I don't want to wake up," Nick said, his blue eyes warm with love. "But I promise you, Olivia, this is very real, and it's just the beginning." As they sealed the promise with a kiss, surrounded by the people they loved, Olivia knew he was right. What had started with a chance encounter in a boutique had blossomed into a love story neither of them had expected, but both had embraced wholeheartedly. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be challenges ahead, compromises to navigate, differences to reconcile. But with Nick by her side, Olivia faced the future with confidence and hope, certain that the best was yet to come. 5 years later, Olivia stood in the doorway of her design studio, watching as Nick played with their 3-year-old daughter, Charlotte, on the floor of the living room. Their son, William, named after Nick's father, napped peacefully in his bassinet nearby, just 4 months old and already showing signs of his father's calm temperament. "Daddy, higher." Charlotte squealed as Nick lifted her above his head, her copper curls so like Olivia's catching the afternoon sunlight. "Any higher and you'll touch the ceiling, little monkey," Nick laughed, bringing her down for a noisy kiss on her cheek. Olivia smiled at the scene, her heart full. The past 5 years had brought more joy than she could have imagined that day in the boutique, when a tall stranger walked in looking for a gift for his sister. They had married in a simple ceremony 6 months after their engagement, surrounded by family and friends in the garden of the Xavier family estate. Olivia had designed her own wedding dress, a sleek, elegant gown that later became the cornerstone of her bridal collection. With Nick's unwavering support and Patricia's mentorship, Olivia's design business had flourished. She now employed a small team and had her own line of sustainable women's wear featured in boutiques across the country, including a permanent collection at Lavender and Lace, where it all began. Nick had continued to expand Xavier developments, focusing increasingly on sustainable housing projects and urban renewal initiatives. The Singapore project had won international awards for innovation in affordable housing design, setting a new standard for the company's developments. They had moved from the penthouse to a spacious brownstone closer to Nick's office, renovating it to include Olivia's design studio and plenty of room for their growing family. It was the perfect blend of their styles, her artistic touches, softening his preference for clean lines and functionality. Life wasn't perfect, of course. They had their disagreements, moments of stress when work demanded too much of their attention, and the usual challenges of balancing careers with parenthood. But through it all, their connection remained strong, built on mutual respect, shared values, and a love that had only deepened with time. "Mommy, come play," Charlotte called, spotting Olivia in the doorway. Setting aside the fabric samples she'd been reviewing, Olivia joined her family on the living room floor, laughing as Charlotte immediately climbed into her lap. "I was just thinking," she said to Nick as their daughter began arranging blocks between them, "about the day we met." "Best day of my life," Nick replied without hesitation, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "Though this one comes close," he added, gently stroking William's cheek as the baby stirred in his sleep. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come into the boutique that day?" Olivia asked. "If you'd ordered Natalie's gift online or gone to a different store?" "Sometimes," Nick admitted, "but I prefer to believe we would have found each other somehow. Some things are just meant to be." As Charlotte demanded their attention with her block tower and William awakened with a soft cry, Olivia couldn't help but agree. From boutique clerk to successful designer, from cautious first date to building a life together, their journey had been unexpected but perfect in its own way. What had begun as a chance encounter between a boutique saleswoman and a billionaire, shopping for his sister, had blossomed into a love story neither of them could have imagined, but one they were grateful to live every day.